Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to be talking about oil painting and some of the things that I find useful when I'm doing oil paintings, my techniques. These are not the end-all be-all of techniques. They're simply the techniques that I use and that I show students in my classes. So without further ado, let's get started. For painting, I generally like to use, these are called gesso boards. They're by a company called Ampersand, and they are a pre-prepared masonite style board that's archival, that's already been gessoed, that already has a surface on it. Sometimes what I like to do is I will tone it using a burnt umber wash. So this is what I usually use when I'm first starting. For my larger paintings, I will use some canvas, but honestly, the gesso board, because I like to do a lot of detail and paint very smoothly, this is my general go-to type of board for painting. Okay. For mediums, I don't use turpentine or anything like that. I'll occasionally use mineral spirits in a 50-50 mix with oil, but in general, I don't use solvents when I'm actually doing my painting. What I do use, and you can use linseed oil, whatever, but I prefer walnut oil. This is made by M. Graham, and this is my go-to oil. I generally will keep the oil in a little cup next to my easel, so you don't need a whole lot. It's not like watercolors or acrylics or anything where you need a lot of the medium that you're using. But just a little bit of oil will go a long way. For brushes, I have a huge range of brushes that I can choose from. I've got lots and lots and lots of brushes that I keep next to my easel here. Okay. My favorite type of brush is the filbert. So filbert has this rounded curve to the top, but when you turn it edge on, it's skinny. So this actually holds quite a lot of paint, and you can do a lot of feathering with this. You can do a lot of, it's very good for blending, that kind of thing. But you can also turn it edge on and get a really nice sharp line. Okay. Another thing that I use, not all the time, but occasionally, is this is called a Maul Stick. Okay, and what this is for when you're actually painting, you can put this against a dry part of your painting, and this helps you get into tight areas. So you can do detail work. It helps to keep your hands steady with that. When I'm getting out paint, I actually, instead of using a regular palette, I just use a paper plate. You know, this is one of those waxed style paper plates that isn't absorbent. So you don't need a lot of paint when you're painting. Let me get out of color here. So usually when I'm painting, I'm only using a tiny bit, really like the size of a pencil eraser. You don't need a whole lot of paint when you're working. If I want to store my paint, or if I know that I'm going to be coming back to colors and whatnot, I have this kit here, which actually allows me to lay out my colors, and so I'll put colors into each block, and it does actually keep them usable for quite a long time. You can also put this in the freezer, and that will keep the paint workable as well. But this also allows me to see what colors I've got for when I'm painting. I have a cart here that I'll show in a minute, which I actually have all of my colors arranged in different drawers, so I can easily pull out the color that I want and use it. All right, so here are my brushes. I've got them arranged from small to large, and that way I can kind of choose brushes as I'm going. I really like these are the Winsor Newton Scepter Gold 2. They've got a really nice fine point for fine details. The fine brushes will wear out much more quickly than some of the larger brushes, so you will probably want to replace them fairly frequently. I keep all my brushes because you never know, even the ones that are kind of frayed can be useful for scrubbing in or whatnot. So I do keep all of my brushes. Here's some of the medium-sized brushes. We've got this is Filbert. These are Filberts that have the curved top to them. We have, these are fan brushes. These are really good for blending and doing gradients, that kind of thing. Let's see here. We've got some other kinds of brushes here. These are bright kind of brush. They're the brights are the ones that are straight across. We've got some larger brushes here, some long-handled brushes, that kind of thing. I don't use palette knives too often in my own work, but those are definitely useful as well. So with paints, I have all of my paints arranged by color range. So I've got my whites in here and my off-whites, my yellows and oranges, reds and purples, brown and earth colors, greens, blues, and grays and blacks. And this is just so that I can find colors pretty quickly and easily as I go. You definitely don't need this many colors to paint. This is just years and years of painting and gathering colors. But for this helps me to kind of choose the types of colors that I want. Each color has its own personality, so you'll have to learn each color, each brand as you go. So that's my color range. For cleaning brushes, I use what's called Terpenoid Natural. And this is a citrus-based cleaner. It smells like oranges. It's really nice. And I'll keep it in one of these containers. Now, this isn't flammable or anything like that. It's non-toxic, but I do keep it in a container just so that I have it all in one place. You can keep on using it. You know, even if the water is kind of, even if the liquid is kind of silty, it will still work for you. In the container, we have a grate and the liquid on top of it, and you can actually take a brush and rub it against the grate and then clean it that way. Rinse it out in the sink. For references, there's a couple ways I deal with looking at what I'm painting. So I have a laptop computer right by my easel, and I have Google Photos on it, so I can access the photos, the references that I've taken from anywhere, and pull up, look through references, look for things that I want to paint that I might have taken photos of. The other thing that I have is off in this corner, I've got a shelf, and move this over a little bit. I've got a shelf here with brackets, and I can put any still life objects on that so that I can see them as I'm working, and I can raise or lower the brackets as I'm working on them. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about is safety with oils. So a lot of the oils that you might find, they'll have this little circle on them, okay? So this one says AP. I have, let's see if I can find some of the other ones here. It might be, okay, here's one. This one has a little CL in the circle here. And you'll want to look for these on your paint tubes. The AP means that it's generally non-toxic. I mean, it's you definitely don't want to eat it or anything like that, but this will be more of a non-toxic paint. The CL is going to be more of your lead-based paints, your cadmiums, that kind of thing that you definitely do not want to eat. Okay, and again, just be careful when you're painting. Wash your hands. Don't eat while you're painting. Don't lick your brushes. That kind of thing. So pretty self-explanatory. For a lot of people like to use paper towels and rags and stuff when they're painting, and that's fine, totally fine. You know, you'll use paper towels to wipe out areas in your painting. You'll use them to wipe off your brushes, whatnot. I try personally to use as few paper towels as possible. The reason being is that spontaneous combustion is a real thing. I've observed it, and what happens is if you have an oil-soaked rag or paper towel or something like that, and it's crumpled up, it actually will, as it's drying, will produce heat, and the heat will build up in that. So if it's crumpled up like this, the heat will increase in this bundle. So you want to be able to allow the heat to dissipate as it's drying. So I try not to use too many towels or rags or whatever when I'm painting, simply because I just don't want to deal with this. When I'm teaching, I have all of the students give me their oil-soaked rags and stuff so that I can dispose of them. The way that I typically handle these is I will take the oily rags, I will run them under some water, and then when I get home or after I'm done painting, whatever, I'll take them out to my fire pit and just toss them in, just for safety's sake. And it doesn't happen that often, but it could really ruin your day if it happened in your studio. So better to be safe than sorry. So yeah, so make sure that you dispose of any oil-soaked rags, whatnot, in a safe location after you're done painting. For the sludge that develops in this, like I said, you can use this without changing it for quite a while. The solvent will still work in it. But what I usually do is I'll pour this into a spaghetti jar or something like that, a used jar, And when that's all, when that's filled up, then that can go to hazardous waste or one of those places, just to get it out of the house. But it takes a long time for that to fill up and whatnot. So I think what else I can tell you guys right now. Yeah, so I think so we are going to stop here, and I'm going to do some painting and bring you along with me on that, and probably come up with some other ideas on what to talk about as we go. So thank you very much, everyone, and happy painting.